Hey guys, in case you weren't in class on Thursday when I introduced how to do this assignment, wanted to take the time to explain the differences between these three political views that we're starting to see emerge in the colonies, especially right after the French and Indian War. And I told you guys when you first got your character descriptions, that very last word on the bottom of the card was either Patriot, Loyalist, or Neutralist. I just told you that was your political view, and we would talk about it later. And this is us talking about it later. So, reason I introduced these political parties now, even though we're still in the very early stages, right after the French and Indian War, we're starting to have people feel the way that these political stances kind of represent. But at the current moment, even after the King's proclamation, we're still mostly everybody's in the neutral area. They haven't really chosen a side. But as the revolution continues and as those taxes that the King's going to start, putting down on the colonists in order to pay for the 7 Years' War and, the French and Indian War, that is when we're going to see people really kind of choose a side. Although a good chunk of the colonists will truly stay neutral through the whole thing. So what do these political parties stand for? First, I'm going to start with are the Loyalists. So the Loyalists, and it gives you kind of the explanation up here. But to break it down, a Loyalist is exactly that. They're going to stay loyal to the King. And I say the King, he's kind of the face of these taxes and these policies and all that, because he is the King. But it is important to note that Parliament was the one making most of these decisions, and the King's just kind of the face of it. So it's much easier to be, have that one common enemy. The King is doing all this to us. So you're going to hear us, talk about that and talk about like being upset with the King. But by this point in history, this monarchy that Britain has is a parliamentary monarchy. So Parliament is the one that's making the rules, which is ultimately what is going to make the Patriots angry, because Parliament is like having representatives that make decisions for you. And the King kind of gets the final say so. And no colonists were a part of Parliament. And they felt that wasn't right. So, Parliament and the King are making these decisions for us, yet we don't even get a say. And the King has never actually visited the colonies to know what life is like over here at all. So that's, kind of another layer of the issues. So the Loyalists, though, they feel very connected to Britain. Okay, yes, the King might want to tax us. Maybe they agree with the idea that they should be taxed because they felt like, they needed the protection from the natives. Maybe they have family that still lives in England and they still very much feel British. And part of that tradition is to, follow the laws. All governments are a little bit annoying. So, this, ours is kind of being annoying, but it's still our government, it's still our King. And you're going to hear one of my favorite lines in The Patriot when we watch it here in a few weeks, as he talks about, why would I trade one tyrant 1,000 miles away for 1,000 tyrants 1 mile away? So that's going to be something that we kind of get into as well. But anyways, Loyalists are going to still feel that connection. They're probably going to agree with pretty much anything the King says or does. They maybe find some annoyance in it, but they ultimately understand why and they support it. Then you have the Patriots who are on the whole other side. The Patriots, especially once we start really getting into the revolution, are going to be the most active members that are trying to rebel, or colonists that are trying to rebel against the King and Parliament. But they pretty much disagree with everything the Crown's doing. The taxes they think are unfair. The proclamation line just makes them angry because most of these patriots we're going to find are your like poorer, lower class farmers, young ones that feel like, hey, I just fought in this war. I want to get over and get into that land. And then here you have the King saying, nope, you can't do that. That is really going to start that distaste. Just like I told you with Washington, even being and serving in the British Army, was starting to kind of see like, hey, I'm not really a huge fan of how Britain is running things. And, why are we going to let this tiny island across the sea regulate what's going on over here? We're way bigger than them. Like we literally are. We have so much more land in the colonies than Britain does at the mother country. So Patriots are definitely going to be the ones that, they pretty much hate everything that the king is doing. And ultimately, they think that they can govern themselves much better than the king and, parliament could ever do. Then you have your neutralists. And especially at this time, most people are neutralists. And a lot of people will stay neutral even throughout the revolution, even though they will kind of be forced to pick sides. You're going to see that with Benjamin Martin in The Patriot when we end up watching it. But a neutralist is just that. They're in the middle. They don't really have a strong stance either side. Like, yeah, maybe the proclamation line's annoying, but he's our king. So, we should just do it. Like, that's our government. Whereas, maybe they've got other reasons, like they're religious. A lot of Quakers would not want to gain or go with independence, but didn't really support the king either. But neutralist, based on religion, is mostly like, hey, I just don't think that we should be fighting. It's not godly, and God's going to handle whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen. So you're going to kind of see these arguments emerge between these three political parties. And this is you just practicing that. Based on that knowledge of what a loyalist, a patriot, and neutralist is, you'll read each of these statements and you'll decide, okay, was this a loyalist, a neutralist, or patriot that said it? And whichever one you think, you're just going to drag it to the spot that you think it belongs. And you'll do that with all 12. It is even that there will be 4 in each political stance. Okay. Now that you know more about your political stance as well, you'll notice the Bellworks have been asking you to take on the perspective of your colonist. So if you are a patriot now, whenever I'm asking you something, and I'm asking you to tell me from the point of view of your colonist, now you kind of know where you stand. Loyalists, sometimes it's a little harder for you because the obvious, I think, reaction is how the Patriots felt about it. But that's not necessarily how you feel about it. So make sure that you are answering from the point of view of your colonist. Okay. Now, slide 2 here is just going to give you a quote. And you're going to decide, was this a patriot loyalist or a neutralist that would have said this quote? And then the main idea here, this is a lengthier quote. You are trying to pull out, like in one sentence or in a few words, what is this person trying to say? So what is their main point? This isn't you explaining why a patriot said it or why a neutralist said it. That is not what you're doing. You are here just summarizing what that quote meant in just a few words. Okay. And then slide 3 is just a reference if you want to go a little bit deeper into some of those patriot arguments and loyalist arguments, whether that's to help you round out your character, or, just help you with this assignment. This is just a resource. There's nothing that you actually have to complete on this slide. All right. Hopefully that helps, and let me know if you have any questions.